and I will fight every day until he is impeached.
I rise today, Mr. Speaker, to call for the impeachment of the President of the United States of America.
The president's fitness for office is something that is being called into question. I'm very worried about his fitness.
Impeachment. It's a word Democrats have thrown around during President Trump's first year in office, and it could become a rallying cry for the left as they look to take back control of the House in 2018. But a prominent member of their own party, New York Congressman Jerry Nadler, is warning against that, telling Politico, quote, "Impeachment is not something you ought to welcome. It's not something you want." So why are they talking about it? Let's bring in Brad Blakeman, former Deputy Assistant to President George W. Bush, and Dennis Kucinich, former Democratic Congressman of Ohio and Fox News contributor. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
So Politico says there is a, quote, tidal wave of liberal disdain for the president, and that polls show 3/4 of Democrats favor impeachment. Dennis, seriously?
Well, first of all, we have to be careful that we're not trying to recreate the 2016 election. And I think that we want to bring Democrats back who may have voted for Donald Trump. And a way to do that, instead of focusing on replacing President Trump and bringing in a President Pence, we ought to be focusing on the things that attract people to the Democratic Party: jobs, wages, health care, education, retirement security. That'll get people excited about voting Democrat, and that's what we ought to be doing instead of focusing on, as Mr. Nadler of New York says, this process of impeachment, which could be quite problematic legislatively.
Brad, it's one thing to disagree with the president or not like the president. It's another thing to be calling for his impeachment.
There's no doubt about it, but they've been doing that since the day he was elected. This is wishful thinking on the part of Democrats. It's not within the realm of possibility that it would happen. And it's a dog whistle. And if they were smart, they would listen to smart people like Dennis Kucinich and Jerry Nadler from New York, who I rarely agree with, but I agree with here, that Democrats have to concentrate on the issues. And when people go into the voting booth, especially in midterm elections, not only is it a report card on the party in power, but it is also how well the American people are doing financially. People vote with their pocketbooks. And right now, there's a wind at the president's back with tax reform. And if they can manage to amplify those achievements as we move into the spring with health care reform and in infrastructure and immigration, then the Republicans will be in a good stead. But Democrats should focus on issues if they have any hope of making headway in the midterms.
Dennis, 58 House Democrats actually voted to bring debate on articles of impeachment. It doesn't sound like they're focusing on agenda.
Well, look, I understand about impeachment. You have to remember, I was the one who brought articles of impeachment challenging President George W. Bush on his conduct of the war in Iraq and the reason for going into war. I understand that. I also knew that the Democratic leaders, they would not go along with it. Look, right now we have serious economic problems that are affecting a lot of working class and middle class people. The Democrats have a great opportunity to reach into that constituency. And for those who voted for Donald Trump and to say, look, here's our platform, here's our program, this is why you should vote Democrat. And when you do that, I think people will respond. But just focusing in on Donald Trump alone, I don't think is sufficient to be able to win the support of the American people, because in the end, it can't be about just a party winning. It has to be about the American people winning.
That makes a lot of sense, Dennis. And after Representative Steve Scalise was shot at that baseball practice, there was this kumbaya moment where both parties said that they needed to come together and they could work together and they would work together. What happened to that, Brad?
Well, in Washington, things don't last very long, whether it's issues, whether it's camaraderie. But I tell you what can happen in 2018, and that is the art of the deal. There's a lot that would be attractive to Democrats if they're willing to reach across the aisle and not be hyper-partisan, especially on things like infrastructure. There's every state, every county, every local authority has a bridge, a road that needs repair. And this is an opportunity to rebuild America, and that is bipartisan. So my warning to Democrats is be careful what you wish for. And if you want to get rid of President Trump, then you have to wait to 2020 because he's not on the ballot in 2018.
Brad Blakeman, Dennis Kucinich, we'll leave it there. Thank you.